Would you like more clients in the luxury space? I bet you would. We're going to talk about that today. Stay tuned. This episode of Keeping It Real is brought to you by Real Geeks. How many homes are you going to sell this year? Do you have the right tools? Is your website turning soft leads into interested buyers? Are you spending money on leads that aren't converting? Well, Real Geeks is your solution. Find out why agents across the country choose Real Geeks as their technology partner. Real Geeks was created by an agent for agents. They pride themselves on delivering a sales and marketing solution so that you can easily generate more business. Their agent websites are fast and built for lead conversion with a smooth search experience for your visitors. Real Geeks also includes an easy-to-use agent CRM. So once a lead signs up on your website, you can track their interest and have great follow-up conversations. Real Geeks is loaded with a ton of marketing tools to nurture your leads and increase brand awareness. Visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod and find out why realtors come to Real Geeks to generate more business. Again, visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod. And now, onto our show. Today's episode is brought to you by Corded.io. Are you looking for agents to join your brokerage or team? Now, as a real estate recruiter, I can tell you the answer is always yes. But most agents aren't looking to move right now. So how do you know who to contact? Well, what if I were to tell you there's a recruiting and retention tool powered by artificial intelligence that shows you exactly which agents in your local market are looking to leave their brokerage right now and which agents at your own firm are also looking to leave you? Now, I've been recruiting realtors for 15 years and I've hired over 2,000 agents. I can tell you with no exaggeration, this is the tool I've been waiting for. Corded's AI looks for trends across dozens of variables for each agent in your market and shows you which agents they believe are likely to move. Not only does it do that, but Corded's AI went and visited my recruiting website and read everything I offer. So now when I'm recruiting, Corded's AI tells me exactly what to say based on that agent's needs and what my brokerage can offer. It even writes emails for me. I've never seen anything like it, and I use it every single day. Now, if you are looking to grow your brokerage, Corded.io is the best tool out there. Visit Corded.io to schedule a demo. Again, that's Corded.io. And now, onto the show. Welcome to Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name's DJ Paris. I'm your guide and host through the show today. We have our monthly series called The Market Minute with Carrie McCormick from the Carrie McCormick Real Estate Group with At Properties here in Chicago. If you're not in the Chicagoland area, you might not be as familiar with Carrie, although she's been on our show for years and years. If you are in the Chicagoland area, you already know who this woman is, but I'll tell you just in case you don't. She's a top 1% producer. She's more than a top 1% producer. She's like a 0.001% top producer with over 20 years of experience helping buyers, sellers, and investors. She's a true superstar and an expert in everything from first-time home buyers, veteran investors, and luxury properties. She also works with a lot of developers. It is often chosen by these developers to represent their high-end developments. I live in one of these so-called developments, and I love it. And I'm so grateful that I got to know about it actually from Carrie being on the show, and that's where I live now. But anyway, I want everybody to follow Carrie on Instagram. Her Instagram is truly remarkable. She does it all herself, which is even more remarkable. And you're going to see it and not even believe that she does it herself, but she does. It's Carrie McCormick Real Estate. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. Carrie, welcome back.
Thank you so much. Always glad to be here, happy to be here, and always love sharing what I know.
You know a lot, and you are probably the busiest. You are the busiest woman I know, and it is truly remarkable that we're able to even get you for a little bit of time. So we appreciate that, and I know not only do we get access to you, but you've got a special new project coming up. I don't know how much you can share, but can you give our audience a little bit of a sneak peek of maybe what's coming?
Well, I've got a few things coming. Always expanding my horizon. So I've got two exciting things coming. For those here in Chicago, I am launching a new development in the Gold Coast. It's at 1447 North Dearborn. It's called The Dearborn. So that's going to be coming to the market hopefully in the next 30 to 60 days. And again, that's in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood. Exciting. And then bigger news is I was tapped to be on a new TV show called The Listing. It's on NBC. It's airing on May 18th at 8:30 a.m. It's Sunday mornings. And we are going to be showcasing some of Chicago's amazing architecture, amazing homes. Chicago has so much to offer, and I'm so excited to show everyone these fabulous properties.
And there's lots of episodes. There's 10 episodes, I believe. And we should also note, I'm going to ask this, and maybe not in these first 10, but I hope at some point you get to do a Frank Lloyd Wright building out in like Oak Park or wherever else his stuff is. Cause boy, that is some of the coolest
It really
architecture.
is. Yeah. And as you know, Chicago's full of all different types. So it's been fun.
Awesome. And I'm going to talk to you because I am thinking about eventually moving out to Oak Park
Amazing.
myself and leaving the city and leaving the wonderful development that that you represented that I'm in. Not because there's anything wrong with that, but I'm looking for a bigger home eventually. So I
Good.
might need to chat with you about how to do that because I need help around that stuff too.
Love that.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges. Well, let's first identify some challenges agents are experiencing right now. Low
Mhm.
inventory market, which means getting offers accepted is obviously as it's tough. It's actually tough in a lot of different scenarios. With where the industry or where the market is, but right now particularly tough. And so, yeah, let's talk about listings and pricing. Or sorry, let's talk about offers and pricing and how you think about that because you need to win deals. So, how are you?
Right. Well, so I think pricing it's the core of what we do, right? And I want to share my experience with pricing. And honestly, I think this is a very important topic for us to talk about. And it's really kind of the psychology of pricing a home and what today's luxury buyers are really thinking, because you've got to put yourself in the mind of the buyer, right? And of course, the seller. And let's face it, pricing is not just about a number. It's really how that number makes you feel, right? So buyers and sellers, with all my sellers, you say like, what number are you looking for? And in their mind, they have a number of what they want. So whether I tell them below that number or above that number, it changes the way that they feel. And again, same with buyers. So again, think of this really kind of as a psychology lesson, to some degree, but I want to start with buyers and what are on buyers' minds. Um, Today's buyers are extremely sharp. And when I say that, they know what they want, they've done their research, and most of the time they're working with either a wealth manager, a mortgage lender, of course, so they know where their numbers are coming in, and sometimes even their parents, right? So they've got some outside sources, influencing their decision. And they're not just looking at homes, they're looking at the value, right? Because also they're a little, I don't want to say scared, but they're a little nervous of, if I pay $500,000 for this home, is it a good investment? Is it going to go up? So they're looking obviously at the property itself, but they're looking at the value. And here's what runs through a buyer's mind, really. So first and foremost, they're going to walk in the home and they're going to think to themselves, do I see myself living here, right? Can they start envisioning their life there? So that's the first emotion that comes out of a buyer. Then their mind kind of shifts into, does this home feel like it's worth it? Then they go into the data. How long has it been on the market for? What's wrong with the home? Why isn't this home hasn't sold? Is the price aligned with finishes, location, my lifestyle? So they go through a series of um, thoughts in their mind about this, right? And I always say in this space, perception is everything. A price that is too high on a home is going to make a buyer pause. A price that is just right will create movement, it creates emotion, and it creates excitement. So think when you're pricing a home or you're with a buyer, keep in mind a number's a number, but that number is important. Now, again, that's the buyer side of things. Let's flip to the seller side. Um, and what a seller has to know is that price that's out in the market, again, let's use 500,000 as an example. That price speaks before even someone comes looks at the home, right?
Sure.
So whether they're searching on Zillow, Redfin, whatever website or whatever tool that they're using, Zenlist, they always have their search parameters set up. And that's going to really be the first and foremost. Pricing is one of the most powerful tools that we have for marketing, and it tells a story before a buyer even sets foot into a home. Um, it creates like urgency in the market, whether, again, if it's too high, it's going to do the absolute opposite. It's not going to create excitement and urgency. If it's priced right or even just a little bit below the market, it is going to create urgency and curiosity for that home.
Hmm.
Um, so remember too, when you're pricing a home, it's kind of that first handshake, if you will, or your first impression to the market. Then follows all of the wonderful marketing that we do. You start going then into your curb appeal, the inside, the paint and the finishes and all of that stuff. But pricing that home is going to be that first, what I call a handshake into the market of whether or not, someone's going to come look at the home.
Yeah, I was thinking, what I might do if I were a practicing agent before listing a property is I would definitely start looking at the other properties in that immediate area who fall in that price range and start to look at the photos in particular, because that's the first thing people look at after the price, or what do the photos look like and what am I competing with? What's the competition out there? And looking to see how those rooms are styled, how those rooms are photographed, because as you said, you want somebody to go, I can't believe this is only $500,000. Not that it's so much better than it should, because then you're like, well, maybe there's something wrong. But like you said, slightly under, the photos look slightly better than what you'd think for a $500,000 home. And you also want to outcompete the other homes in that area that are online as well. So I love this idea of taking a look at the photos and kind of figuring out, well, how are other agents styling these homes? What colors are they using? What do the walls look like?
Right.
And how much stuff is in the room? Is it does it look like it's staged? And also, do the photos look real? Right? We know that there's virtual staging, and sometimes virtual staging looks great. Other times it looks really bad.
Right.
And you see these like perfect skies in windows, and you're like, well, that's not right. So there's I imagine you probably do quite a bit of competitive research to see before listing what else is out there, to because that's your competition.
Absolutely. I was with a client yesterday, and he has an incredible home that he has built and curated, and I told him it's kind of like a piece of art in the sense of there are no comps for this home,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
it's truly one of a kind. And I did bring a subset of data because I am very data driven, and it's really just it's not looking at it's just looking at like square footage, lot size, that kind of stuff. And I told him, and he said to me, "Well, how are you going to price this home?" And I said, "Well, there's three things that we're going to look at. One, of course, is the data, and data is important because appraisers use data, but we need to the cost per square foot is a real thing. But there again, there's no apples to apple comp for this home. But you also have to look at emotion, and you can't really quantify emotion, but when a house is done so spectacular and so curated and with the finest finishes, there's value to that. And the other thing we look at is supply and demand, right? I mean, that's the cornerstone of how people buy and pricing. So it's um, if there's zero supply in the market, there's high demand. We're dealing with a home that has nothing but the finest finishes in it. That is part of the equation of pricing a home. So it's a mix of data and really emotion. And again, I start with the facts, the comps, the market trends, absorption rates, and then I craft a story around the unique features of the home, the lifestyle of the home, the opportunity, and then you put all of that together. It's kind of like baking a cake, as I said that. You put all these ingredients in, and then I come up with the price.
So when you're crafting this great story, so that's a great example of the one, yeah, that you were just mentioning, this one of a kind home, not
Mhm.
easy to comp it out, and you want to tell that story, and you have on a listing, let's say on Zillow, because that's where everyone's searching. So it's hard to. Well, it's not hard, but it has to be very intentional to tell that story. Zillow only gives you a
Right.
certain amount of space to do that, right? So you can't do a 30-minute video, or maybe you can. I don't know what Zillow allows anymore. But how do you think about starting to tell that story in the agent remarks? Because every home says one of a kind, right? But how do you tell that story without being physically there in person, or is that part of the challenge?
It is part of the challenge, but I do think that, having the right photography, obviously every broker does photography, but having the photography start with the story, right? And,
Yeah,
photos, there's good photographers and bad photographers, right? So, um, I always say, like, just a texture of a home and their paint colors, it really kind of comes to life in some of these photos. Video work is extremely important, right? Because that is an opportunity to verbally tell the story and highlight things in the home. Description obviously is also important. ChatGPT has become the cornerstone of descriptions, and I see like the same one repeated
yeah.
all the time. But being as specific as you can and highlighting, again, people's attention span is very short. So, within that first sentence or two, you've really got to engage them. So having, the right words, the right story behind the home is going to be important. But again, you've got to, us as realtors, our job as marketers is to have, I could say, cast a wide net. You've got to do print, you've got to do online, you've got to do your cold calling. There's so many ways that you've got to get this property out to the market. And the branding and storytelling has to be consistent.
And let's talk about cold calling, because especially when you have these one of a kind listings where
Mhm.
it is more challenging to tell that story on a site like Zillow, where you're not able to control as much of the way they present the information. You now have the added sort of, probably, responsibility of finding other agents that serve those kind of buyers.
Mhm.
And in particular, so you do your research and you're constantly looking to say, who else sells properties like this? Because
Right.
we kind of are now playing in a similar pool, and we want, you might not know some of their buyers, or maybe they, it's such a particularly unusual listing, or high net worth listing, that you have to tap into other networks. And so agents who are tapped into those networks, professional sports athletes, celebrities, people who are super high up at corporations, they may have a different team in place. And so you're having to sort of tap into those teams. You are out looking for the buyer, just as much as getting it listed and marketed correctly.
Absolutely. And I've been doing this for quite some time, and I've built such an incredible network around me, and I continue, to grow that network. And yes, I mean, that's my job, is to, kind of, again, matchmaker too, is match the property with the right clientele, whether it's a broker, whether it's, here in Chicago, or whether it's a broker out of state, out of the country. Like you mentioned, wealth managers, CPAs. I love art dealers, interior designers, sports agents, all of that.
You did something very wise, which I suspect a lot of agents don't think to do. And this is something that maybe not all of us could do right now, but something to think about when we're developing our networks outside of our immediate
Mhm.
chosen area, which is you started visiting agents in some of these other areas, agents that you already had relationships with, just to see how they act, in person, and also making new relationships as well. I'm curious, because I know you did that a bit last year.
Yeah.
How did that work out for you? Was that because you were flying all over the place to
Yeah.
different places that feed into Chicago, or that feed out of Chicago?
Right.
And did you enjoy that process, and was it worthwhile?
Absolutely. And even if something doesn't come to you right away, it definitely will at some point. I was just in New York, and we did another networking event there. And it's, even if folks can't fly somewhere or don't have the time, and it is, it's hard, it's a commitment, right? It's at least 72 hours. And um, you obviously have to spend money to do it, is just doing a Zoom call with somebody, right? Or, picking up the phone and calling them. So there's definitely other ways. Um, I'm just going to show you one example. I'm going to put this agent on the spot really quick for those people who are watching. Is, this agent, I went to a conference and she followed up with a card, and it was personalized to me, just thanking me for meeting with me, and it's these little high touches, and it's so cute. And I left it over here, and she's in Austin, Texas. And I got it. And I thought, like, how smart is this? So now she's going to
Yeah.
get pinned to my board there. And, if I need someone in Austin, Texas, she's going to be who I thought of. So it's being creative. It's thinking out of the box. It was just a postcard mailing and it just made a good impression.
And really, we should all be thinking about where are these markets that are really exploding right now. Houston, I don't know if Nashville is still as popular as it used to be. Charleston, parts of Wyoming. There's all of these markets that are heating up that you might think, well, I don't normally get clients moving from here to there, but right now a lot of people are working from home. They're working remote, so they now have the ability to make those shifts. And so that's the time. Austin, of course, these are places that are very popular. Montana, there's parts of Montana
I
that are
know.
crazy. Salt Lake City, there's all sorts of cool markets where you want to start talking to agents over there and get those relationships, so that the moment somebody says, oh, we're making a move, you're like, I have the best agent. I'm going to connect you. And, because they probably don't have that agent at that point. So, um, yeah. And I'm curious too, how often does it happen where you end up referring business out to other parts of the country? You're licensed here, so you can't work every state. So is it a significant part of your business as people move?
It is, I'm very focused here in Chicago, and absolutely, we have key feeder states. I call them feeder states, which is, Florida, Arizona, Montana, Colorado, a little bit of California as well. And so, absolutely, it should be a part of everybody's business, just so you know.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think this is a great place to kind of, wrap for this episode. I want everybody to think Carrie's one of Carrie's specialties, two of her specialties, and she works with all sorts of clients. So I don't want to exclude any part of any client she's working with, because she has hundreds and hundreds of clients every single year. But she does a lot in the luxury space. She does a lot with developers. So if our audience who are realtors are thinking, I don't work with developers, or I don't get those opportunities today, I want to learn how to get those, and I want to maybe dip my toe into the luxury space. Obviously, we all would love those listings, but it's a different skill set. And so if you have questions around how to begin to build those skills, let us know. Shoot those over to us, and we can address those as best we can in future episodes. So also, just want to thank Carrie. As you hear the dinging, those are all of the emails she gets. And that is literally, no, it's totally fine. That's literally how busy she is, guys. So we are so lucky to get her, even for just 15, 20 minutes once a month. But we love having her. She's so kind. She's so generous. And if you are an agent in another market and you have clients that think about moving to Chicago, you want to talk to her, or maybe she has clients moving out to your area. And yeah, write her a handwritten note like the agent in Austin did. You know how many handwritten notes Carrie probably gets a year? I bet it's like 3. It's probably not as many as you think. I get like 2. Isn't it crazy?
And I like, as you can see, like, I love it when agents do that. So I think it's
Yeah.
great.
So do that. Follow her on Instagram, Carrie McCormick Real Estate, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Also, a link to her website. She is really, the way she presents herself. I want you really to pay attention to her brand. She's a very specific brand, and think about how well cultivated that is, and how that works for her with the kind of listings and the kind of buyers she wants to work with. And on behalf of all of our audience, thank you, Carrie. On behalf of Carrie and myself, she's been with us now 6 or 7 years, we love having her on. So on behalf of Carrie and myself, we love our audience. Thank you for continuing to support the show. Please check out our sponsors. They help keep the whole machine running. And tell a friend. Think of one other agent that could use this information Carrie provided, and send them a link to either our website, keepingitrealpod.com, or just have them pull up their podcast app and search for Keeping It Real. Hit that subscribe button. Also, leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. We appreciate it. It helps us get in front of more agents, and we'll keep making these episodes for you. We will see everybody next time. Thanks, Carrie.
Bye. Thank you.